Laura's success as a school teacher is a significant thread running through these happy golden years. She learns to manage a classroom and inspire difficult students. Although she had dreaded becoming a teacher, Laura finds the work professionally challenging and satisfying. She takes pride in her students' work. Never had she been so happy as she was that spring. Her pupils were happy too, everyone as good as gold, and eager and quick to learn. Laura's commitment to education for her students and for herself marks her growth and maturity as a young woman and illustrates the important role Ma has played in shaping Laura's character. It's not that Laura has abandoned the values of freedom and independence she has inherited from Pa. It's that in this novel, Laura begins to embrace her role in society as a young woman. Ma's influence balances Pa's. Ma, for example, helps Laura resolve the crisis with Clarence at the Brewster School early in the novel. "If I were you," Ma gently began, and Laura remembered that Ma had been a school teacher, "I'd give way to Clarence and not pay any attention to him. It's attention he wants. That's why he cuts up. Be pleasant and nice to him, but put all your attention on the others and straighten them out. Clarence will come around." "That's right, Laura. Listen to your Ma," said Pa. "Wise as a serpent, gentle as a dove." Notice that Pa affirms Ma's wisdom here. It's not surprising then that Laura places an increasing value on her own education. She continues to study even while she's teaching at the Brewster School and happily returns to school in DeSmet after her term is finished with the Brewsters. Laura is relieved to learn that she is still sailing at the head of the class with flying colors. Perhaps because decades later, Wilder continued to value education, she included a bittersweet scene in these happy golden years between Laura and the school teacher she most admired, Mr. Owen. Laura has agreed to marry Almanzo at the end of the summer and has accepted a teaching position to earn more money before the wedding. On the last day of school, she bids Mr. Owen farewell. Until that moment, he hadn't realized that Laura wouldn't return to school in the fall. "I'm sorry," he said. "Not sorry you were going to be married, but because I didn't graduate you this spring. I held you back because I had a foolish pride. I wanted to graduate the whole class together, and some weren't ready. It's not fair to you. I'm sorry," he tells Laura. In the novel, she responds, "It doesn't matter. I'm glad to know I could have graduated." In Pioneer Girl, Wilder wrote that, "I was very much disappointed, but didn't fuss." In fact, in Pioneer Girl, Wilder provided more additional details about this incident, one that clearly remained important to her all those decades later. She had apparently talked to Mr. Owen about graduating from high school before the last day of school. "As spring drew near, I talked to Mr. Owen about graduating. He said he would have no graduation exercises that spring. The class was not ready, as I was the only one who could pass the examinations." Following this conversation, Wilder took her second teacher's examination and signed a contract for the Wilkins School, not before, as it happens in these happy golden years. When Mr. Owen learns that Wilder won't return to school in the fall, the tears came in his eyes and he begged me to give up teaching that spring and finish the term. He said he had not been fair to hold me back for the rest of the class, as he had done all winter, and if I would stay, he would graduate me from high school by myself, that we still had time and I could do it. Wilder refused, because there was not time for the Wilkins School to find another teacher. I had signed a contract, and school began next Monday. Wilder dropped out of school to fulfill her professional commitments as a teacher. The DeSmet Schoolhouse also provides the setting for a scene that gives readers the first intimation of Laura's ambition to write. In the novel, it occurs just after Laura returns to the DeSmet Schoolhouse after her successful term at the Brewster School. She feels self-confident in her studies only to learn that Mr. Owen had assigned the class to write a composition on ambition. Laura was in a panic. She had never written a composition, and now she must do in a few minutes what the others had been working at since yesterday. Laura works on her composition during recess, writes it quickly and efficiently, and when she reads it aloud, Mr. Owen tells her, "You should write more of them. I would not have believed that anyone could do so well the first time." Laura receives a grade of 100% on her composition and looked forward happily to writing more. This was an important moment for the real Laura Ingalls as well. Wilder wrote about this episode in Pioneer Girl, and perhaps even more significantly, she kept that composition all her life. Here's the real essay Wilder wrote for Mr. Owen. It's in the archives at the Laura Ingalls Wilder Home and Museum in Mansfield. I discussed this composition earlier in the course, but let's return to it within the context of Wilder's last Little House book. The real composition differs slightly from the text in the novel. Here's the version as it appears in These Happy Golden Years. Ambition is necessary to accomplishment. Without an ambition to gain an end, nothing would be done. Without an ambition to excel others and surpass oneself, there would be no superior merit. To win anything, we must have the ambition to do so. Ambition is a good servant but a bad master. So long as we control our ambition, it is good. But if there is danger of our being ruled by it, then I would say, in the words of Shakespeare, "Cromwell, I charge thee, fling away ambition. By that sin fell the angels." Wilder writes in These Happy Golden Years that Laura wrote quickly and felt miserable because she didn't have time to rewrite and polish her composition. The fictional Laura Ingalls, however, wrote perfectly the very first time. The real Laura Ingalls, on the other hand, took time to revise ambition. The original scrap of paper shows she wrote 2 drafts and used the second one to correct spelling errors, add new content, and end with that quotation from Shakespeare's King Henry VIII. Here's the original draft, written according to Wilder's handwritten note on the original in 1883. Ambition is like other good things, and then a word or two is illegible. A good only when used in moderation. It has worked great good for the world and great evil also. Alexander is an example of a man completely carried away by ambition, so much so that when he had conquered the whole world, which one would suppose was enough to satisfy ambition, he wept because there was no more world to conquer. Ambition is a good servant but a hard master, and if you think it is likely to become your master, I would say to you, in the world, there's a mistake here, of the immortal Shakespeare, "Cromwell, I charge thee, fling away ambition. By the sin fell the angels." Obviously, Wilder rewrote her original composition for These Happy Golden Years. But based on her recollection in Pioneer Girl, the real Mr. Owen and the fictional one had the same response to her work. He told Laura Ingalls that she should write more, and his advice apparently meant a great deal to her. Otherwise, why would she have kept that single composition for a lifetime? Later in These Happy Golden Years, Wilder adds one more subtle grace note to her fictional counterpart's future ambitions as a writer. When Mary returns from college for the summer, she and Laura take a walk together across the prairie while the wild roses are in bloom. "Gather ye roses while you may," Mary began, and she quoted the poem for Laura. Then as they walked on together in the rose-scented warm wind, she talked of her studies in literature. "I am planning to write a book someday," she confided. Then she laughed. "But I plan to teach school and you are doing that for me, so maybe you will write a book." I write a book? Laura hooted. She said blithely, I'm going to be an old maid schoolteacher like Miss Wilder. Write your own book. And yet readers know that Mary's prediction is right. Mary knows Laura better than Laura knows herself. In this moment, the fictional Laura Ingalls and the real Laura Ingalls Wilder seem to merge. The writer's past becomes the character's unspoken future. Time loses its meaning. Reality and fiction in this passage become virtually indistinguishable. As we discussed in the last lecture, these happy golden years gives Laura a life apart from her family, boarding with the Brewsters, holding down a claim with Mrs. McKee, teaching at the Perry and Wilkins schools, sewing for Miss Bell. Her romance with Almanzo Wilder deepens as she spends more time with him on those long buggy rides at the singing school, breaking Skip and Barnum. When Mary makes her final appearance in the Little House series, the two girls talk about their futures and how swiftly time passes now that they're older. Mary hopes Laura will wait another summer before marrying Almanzo so she can attend the wedding. But Laura is ready to embrace her freedom and doesn't want to delay her marriage, even for Mary. I'm 18 now, and I've taught 3 terms of school. That's one more than Ma taught. I don't want to teach anymore. I want to be settled this winter in our own home. Despite Laura's deepening maturity, self-confidence, and independence, Laura remains consistent with her younger fictional self. Wilder gives us another glimpse of this in Laura's final scene with Nellie Olsen, which inevitably involves Almanzo. Still early in their courtship, Almanzo drives out across the big slough one Sunday afternoon toward the Ingalls homestead with someone in his buggy. That someone turns out to be Nellie Olsen, of course. She is typically Nellie, sicky sweet, complimenting everything she sees, including Laura. Everything is utterly too. Laura's head ached. Her ears rang with the continuous babble, and she was furious. Almanzo seemed to be enjoying the drive. At least, he looked as though he were being amused. The next Sunday, Nellie is riding with Almanzo yet again, and Laura manages to put Nellie in her place. She intentionally spooks the horses and gets the desired reaction from Nellie. Oh, I never was so frightened in my life, Nellie chattered and gasped. Horses are such wild things. Oh, Manny, why did they do it? Don't let them do it again. Laura's approach works, and when Almanzo drives out the following Sunday, he's alone. He tells Laura with disgust that Nellie's afraid of horses. This sequence reads like a variation on the bloodsucker scene in On the Banks of Plum Creek, when Laura lures Nellie out into the creek so the bloodsuckers will cling to her legs and feet. Nellie tried to kick one off, and then she ran screaming up on the creek bank. Then she stood kicking as hard as she could, first one foot, then the other, screaming all the time. Now the girls' reactions have changed slightly. They are a bit more subtle, befitting their age. But in these happy golden years, Nellie's essential character hasn't really changed much, nor, in this respect, has Laura's. Yet according to these happy golden years, Nellie's scenes in these happy golden years really belong to a young woman named Stella Gilbert, who sometimes rode with Wilder and Almanzo on their Sunday afternoon rides. Manley said the poor girl worked so hard it would be nice to give her a good time. Wilder, however, knew Stella far better than Almanzo and realized from the beginning that Stella Gilbert was trying her best to edge me out of those drives. The real Stella Gilbert was about 3 years older than Wilder, closer in age to Almanzo. According to the federal census, Stella was one of 7 children. Her brother Fred was for a time interested in courting Wilder herself. the family ultimately moved to Oregon. As Wilder was planning the final books in the Little House series, she explained Stella's role to Lane. There will be Mary Power, Ida Brown, perhaps Stella Gilbert, though I think I'll combine Ginny Masters and Stella in Nellie Olsen. So, 3 models for Nellie Olsen: Nellie Owens, Genevieve Masters, and Stella Gilbert, but 1 consistent fictional character. Stella Gilbert's scenes are not Nellie's last ones. Laura emerges victorious, but not without a moment of sympathy for Nellie. On the way back, they came into town past the Olsens' claim. It was on the section line a mile east of Almanzo's homestead. Laura had not seen Nellie Olsen's home before, and she felt a little sorry for her. The shanty was so small, standing among the wild grass and the wind. Mr. Olsen had no horses, only a yoke of oxen, and the place was not improved as Pa's was. It's important to note that the Ingalls and Olsens' fates have been reversed by the end of the series. Pa owns horses, property in town, and has built a comfortable home for the family on the homestead. The Olsens, however, are no longer prosperous, wealthy shopkeepers as they were when readers first met them. By the end of the series, the Olsens are living like the Ingalls family did on Plum Creek, without horses, just a yoke of oxen, in a small, unimproved claim shanty that lacks even the charm of the earlier books dug out. The fictional Laura Ingalls may feel a little sorry for Nellie and her family, but Wilder, the writer, has given the fictional family a kind of poetic justice. Their fortunes have declined in keeping with the smallness of their spirits. Wilder also reserves one last thematic moment in these happy golden years for Pa's restless, westering spirit. Despite the family's prosperity in Dakota Territory, Pa longs to move on. "I would like to go west," he told Ma one day. "A fellow doesn't have room to breathe here anymore." "Oh, Charles, no room with all this great prairie around you?" Ma said. "I was so tired of being dragged from pillar to post, and I thought we were settled here." "Well, I guess we are, Caroline, don't fret. It's just that my wandering foot gets to itching, I guess. Anyway, I haven't won that bet with Uncle Sam yet, and we stay right here till we win it, till I can prove up on this homestead claim." Ma's vision for the family has prevailed. The Ingalls will set down roots in Dakota Territory, and Pa will live out his life in a settled country. Yet, despite the changes in Laura, her maturity, her independence, her new profession, she remains closer to Pa in spirit than to Ma. Laura knew how he felt, for she saw the look in his blue eyes as he gazed over the rolling prairie westward from the open door where he stood. He must stay in a settled country for the sake of them all, just as she must teach school again, though she did so hate to be shut into a schoolroom. Laura is changed and yet essentially the same. The young woman she has become is consistent with the little girl she used to be. And so the series ends. Even in marriage, Laura retains her sense of independence by refusing to submit to conventional marriage vows, and perhaps just as significantly, she marries a man who doesn't expect submission. Laura tells him, "I do not think I could obey anybody against my better judgment." "I never expect you to," he told her. In fact, Almanzo himself is not a conventional bridegroom for the period. He not only builds a house for Laura, but makes all the domestic arrangements as well, blurring the established gender roles, not just for the 1880s, but for the 1940s as well. Even their wedding is unconventional, a rushed and simple ceremony to avoid Wilder family interference, The Reverend Brown and his radical ideas in that black wedding dress. Married in black, you'll wish you were back, Ma tells Laura. Not surprisingly, Ma isn't entirely satisfied with Laura and Almanzo's wedding plans, but Pa agrees with him wholeheartedly. I think it is a sensible thing to do. You and Almanzo show good judgment. Laura has the blessing of her mentor and guide, even as she breaks free from his protection. While Laura's story ends with marriage, it doesn't seem like she has completely conformed. She has made mature and informed choices that remain consistent with the independent, pioneer spirit of her childhood. And as the novel ends, readers sense that Laura is about to begin another adventure, and yet one that is informed by her past, represented by the echo of Pa's fiddle and the lines of a familiar song, lines that suggest not just the passing of Laura's childhood, but perhaps the reader's as well. Golden years are passing by, these happy golden years.